Welcome to Triple B, where we are Black, beautiful, and brave.
Where our goal is to inspire and empower Black single women to embrace their beauty and to be brave. I'm Candy.
I'm Ayana, and we are your hosts.
Thank you for joining us today on our Black, Beautiful, and Brave podcast. Why Black? Why beautiful? Why brave?
We created this space for several reasons: to hear from a Black Christian woman's perspective, to empower single women.
We want to address issues that affect Black women from our lenses, not the males, not the society, the world, not the church, our perspective.
Everybody has something to say about Black, single Christian women except us.
Oftentimes, Black women's voices are in a box.
We are not a monolith.
Everyone has something to say about Black professional and non-professional Christian women who are single.
But no more. Enough.
It is our time to talk transparently and to create change.
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
We want the rest of the world to hear what we talk about. And we are back. Welcome back, everyone. This is Candy.
This is Ayana.
We have a very interesting topic for today that we would like to discuss. And we'll see where it goes, where it leads us to, as we do every time. And today we want to talk about, or just ask a question as our topic. Is there a gender war within the Black community? So men and female, is there a gender war? Because when you go online and watching different influencers, different podcasts, that relate to, let's say, African Americans or Black people living in America, and you hear that it seems as if, this particular group that we also belong to are having difficulties in relating to one another. And I'm sure it happens in all groups.
Right. I was just about to say, it's not just our group, I'm sure.
And so, but because this is a group that we belong to,
right.
It's just something that's interesting because there are quite a few variables that affect how the genders or men and women relate to one another and how they come together as a family. So, yeah, do you believe that there is a gender war happening here in the Western world? If you would say in America, that's where we are. We're in America. So let's talk about in America. Is there a gender war? What are your thoughts?
No.
All right. Ayana says no. Well, I do believe that there is, I guess when you think of war, it's like, okay, this is a big catastrophe. But I think that there is a war that is happening, a war of thought, of understanding, and one group wanting to be heard over another. Whereas, let me not say war, battles.
Right. So if you say a battle, maybe. But a war, to me, implies this whole, I'm on one side, you're on the other. There's this big gulf between us. I would say misunderstanding. And of course, we know because of the enemy, there's always confusion. So definitely with the misunderstanding, we can say a lot of confusion, right, among Black men and Black women.
And I think it depends on what community you belong to. You may see it more apparent than others, right? And so in some communities, in some certain areas in America, or if you're online, you may say, no, there is a war that is happening. You just look in the comment section, right? On depending on who the influencer or what video that's being brought out.
Yeah.
And so, but I see a lot of, at least for me, a glimmer of hope is that you see a lot of influencers who are out there discussing, talking about, providing guidance, some resolution. But we want to talk about this perceived war battle that is happening, and what are we fighting about? What's going on? And one of the persons, an individual, an American author known as, I'm sure, I hope I don't butcher her name, and I've seen her on TV before, and I remember seeing her years ago and also in different documentaries, which is Am I saying it? Sharadi?
Shahrazad Ali.
There you go. Shahrazad Ali.
Right.
And so her thought, and she comes across very, very strong and her message. And her message, she's been saying it since the late 80s, evidently in books that she's written. And it could come off as very demeaning to Black women. But if you just listen to what she says, what are your thoughts? I think you just recently been introduced to her.
Right. So, I just found out about her. I'd never known about her before. Candy sent me this video clip and, listened to some of what she said and what she wrote. And Candy, you'll probably have to tell some of the listeners as well some of what she's actually said. Or I could mention it too. But definitely it is not something that necessarily would be readily acceptable in, let's say, 2024. I know it was not necessarily as acceptable even back then, right? So we're kind of going to discuss a little bit about that.
Yeah. All right. So what are some of the thoughts that you saw or heard? Because she is a very, a woman who really celebrates Black families. She supports it and she believes strongly in, I would say, gender roles, the role of a man, the role of a Black woman, or Black man and Black woman in a family, and about, I guess, the patriarchal standards or roles that a man has in a family, that the man is supposed to lead his family. The man is supposed to lead out. And so sometimes the difficulties that men experience could be because she puts the blame on the woman.
Yeah.
Some may not agree to that, and some may agree. And I think it depends on the context of understanding where she's coming from.
Right. And I'm okay with that. One of the concepts that she does put forth is that a lot of the problems in the Black home is related to Black women. And, this basic lack of understanding, lack of respect for the Black man. So to me, that is pretty heavy because, especially a single woman, one of the reasons I have been told, one of the reasons that there are so many single Black women, and they give us many reasons, right? Maybe you didn't take care of yourself well enough, or you didn't know how to approach men, you don't know how to be in a relationship, or a lot of reasons that place the blame for relationships and relationship failures squarely at the feet of Black women. And I guess for me, hearing that sentiment from her about the home now, the structure of the home being maintained or destroyed by the Black woman just seems to me part of that whole idea again of blaming Black women for all the problems in the universe.
Yeah, I think that I guess her audience and what she's trying to share or compel in her writings and her speeches is more so it's probably for a particular demographic or group of Black women. If you're talking about in the 80s, if you look at where the family structure was, if you're talking about single parent homes led by Black women and the reason why, Black women don't leave by themselves and they don't impregnate themselves.
Exactly.
But, the man is absent from the home.
That's right.
Right? So not due to any fault of their own. You're talking about lack of economics, work, opportunities for growth and so forth, not only for that particular generation, but even for the generation before. And so one of the things that I know, I've had conversation with certain men about, why some women are taught or are raised to be independent. I said because, so I'm find the quote, is because that, they're raised by women who've been hurt.
That's right.
who've been abandoned,
That's right.
you know, and so they don't want that to happen to their own daughter.
And so they've been so essentially they're teaching their daughters to take care of themselves, to avoid that hurt. Which the reality is you cannot, right? In life, and no matter what happens, you are going to go through hurt. You are going to go through disappointments, and even if you try to your best of your ability to avoid any kind of hurtful situation, that's not how life is, right? And God puts certain situations in our lives so that we can learn to not depend on ourselves, but really depend on Him.
Very true. Very true. I had a similar conversation with someone last week, and this is what they shared. A post that went up online. It says, men need to sit with men who have healed perspectives of women. Ladies need to surround themselves with women that have healed perspective of men. The conversations are difficult. The energy is different. The love, appreciation, and respect is different. So it's more so when you're hearing different perspectives or different thoughts that are being shared, where you have to look at that person's experience. Are they coming from a healed person or still a hurt person?
Yeah.
So sometimes our parents that are raising boys, raising girls, are hurt. And that's what they're sharing, and they are passing that down and so forth. The trauma that has been experienced is being passed down generation to generation.
Yeah, and understandably so, because if you are raising a child and you have been hurt, you're going to pass along that hurt inevitably. It doesn't mean that it has to continue, right? All of us are on some sort of continuum, and we're learning as we go through life. But I think that's great advice. The question is, though, how many of us actually seek out people who are healed or want to be in a situation or put ourselves in a position where we hear that advice or even want to follow that advice?
The question is, how many of us even acknowledge that there is a problem?
Right.
Knowing that, okay, I have a problem. Sometimes it's not until you're older and you're like, why does this keep happening to me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why is this continuously, this cycle is repetitive, and, I'm always getting hurt. I'm always attracting the wrong kind of guy. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Sometimes until you just don't see change, then oh, I do have this problem. Yeah. Now that I do have this problem, I need to so forth and so forth. I need to seek help.
Right.
And I think that and knowing that giving, I guess, advice, that whomever you're seeking advice from, whoever you're hearing, this is what I did, or this is what I suggest you to do, is really to learn someone's history.
Yeah, because if you know their history, then it will give you a better context. I have a friend who, every time I'm about to exhaust some people, so cancel culture is not new, right? We've been, throughout the years, there are people who you meet and for different reasons, well, now you say you cancel them, right? And I know I have a particular friend, every time I'm about to X out particular persons from my life, she'll say, no, that's how they've been raised, in this particular culture, this is what they do. And based on that, that's why you'll always get this type of response from this individual.
I get it. Yeah. And therefore I can choose not to be in that type of environment.
You can. But I guess the idea she was saying is, because the other thing is, when we cancel people, right, or decide that person is not worthy of existing in your sphere, right, or in your world, then we also we are closing doors and windows, right? And then we are also creating blockages within our own lives. So if you can take someone out of your life or take someone out of your space and still be breathe deeply and have a light airiness to your soul, knowing that you did what God wanted you to do, great for you. But for most of us, when we do that, there's a heaviness. There's something that's still left behind. There's this residue There's this healing that still needs to take place, right? So, yeah, that's why, as you said, you rightly said, there is a context, there's a background for what people say and do.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. Not to say that a person must have a perfect background,
Right.
even with their hurt, even with the trauma that they've gone through. Have they been able to articulate how they were able to overcome, how they were able to grow, how they were able to heal, and where did they find that source of healing from? Where do they find growth from? For those who are believers, do you hear reference of God? Do you hear reference of, having accountability partners or a spiritual guidance from a particular person? Granted, professional help works.
Yes.
Definitely professional help works. And so, where are you finding your growth? Where did they? And so now as they share, you can hear, okay, your perspective that you're coming from is from a healed perspective, not a perspective of hurt, not a perspective of perfection. Like, oh, I've been perfect everything worked great for me. No. And so it's just hearing, and I love to, as a young person, okay, I'm still young, but I was going to say, as a younger person, I enjoyed sitting with those who are older, who lived a life, and just listening to hear or listening how they have, their life experience, how they have raised children, how they came together with their spouse or ex-spouse or widow, how that happened, and just listening to them, because you can learn so much from them. And so with this, with Miss Ali, hearing what she is saying, I can see that the community that she's working with or she's referring to are women who are hurt. Women who have been hurt but know they want to be with a man.
Right. But it's not all women. It's not all women in the sense of, because like black women, like all black women are causing destruction in their homes.
Right.
Right. Because a lot of the most successful black men we have out there were raised by single moms. I remember once having a friend, and he was talking about, all the reasons why he wouldn't date a particular type of woman. And essentially it was almost as if, because he was raised by a single mom, and the type of woman he was choosing was almost the opposite of his mom.
What was that? What were those characteristics?
I don't know. Okay, so we're going race-wise, not a black woman, right?
And his mother was black.
Yes, his mother was black. So not a black woman, because the narrative was that, again, the black woman, a little too independent-minded. They would be a little more assertive. I'm saying assertive so that I wouldn't say they're too combative, because that is said to answer too much. Better able to manage their money, right? Because he fully intended to make a lot of money, and so he felt in his mind that the perfect companion going forth would be someone the opposite of that.
So did he not see within his own mother someone who was able to manage money?
That's what I said. I'm like, well, what? And in full disclosure, it actually was someone who I dated for a while. And I was like, what? So all of those are red flags in my mind. So no matter how much you tell me you are committed to me, you want to get married to me, I'm like, in my mind, that's not what you said to me.
Right, because you've already shared the type of woman that you want to be with.
That's right.
And my thought, too, also with someone like that, and many men who are like that, there are multiple variables that go into play. It's more so influence of society, right? When you said he wanted to be with a different type of woman because of this is what he have heard and perceived what black women are. He didn't look at his mother. He didn't look at maybe the women in, the positive black women in his family. It's just more so this is what society says. This is the women now. Because some will say, no, my mom is different. Right. My aunt is different, you know?
Well, no, they still say the exception, right? It's like the person who, So if let's say you're black and you're dating a white guy, and he'll say, the white guy might say to you, "Oh, you're different to the other black women." Really?
She's different.
Like, really?
No, she's different. She's exotic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of heavy today because we're like, Candy and I have been going back and forth about this topic because it's intense. Me personally, I feel like a lot of times black women take a lot of, I wouldn't say abuse, but we take a lot of a beating for many things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it is so unfair,
I hear you when you say that, that we take a lot of beating, or people have thoughts about us and put us all in one category.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the images or the concerns that men have or other people have about us, I still see them.
Yeah,
and I even see them in black women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they make it seem as if it's only black women.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
When in essence, we're talking about just women in general, right? Mm-hmm. Women in general that probably share other variables outside of race that cause them to act out or to do certain things as well.
Right.
When you think about the different, if you would say a video vixen, right? When you think of a video vixen, you think of what? A black woman. Do you know what a video vixen is?
No, I don't.
Okay, great.
So I don't even, so I have no thoughts on that. I do not think of a black woman. I don't even know what it is.
So a video vixen, for those who don't know, if you watch music videos and so forth from, I guess maybe from the 90s or 80s and 90s to the present, the video vixen would be the person or the woman, the beautiful woman that's in the music video, that's dancing. This is the desirable. This is what men want.
Okay.
Right? She may have a particular type of look.
Okay.
Depending on the age or, depending on the era.
Right.
Right? Thin, long hair, fair skin, probably very curvaceous, but still thin, she looks a certain way, right? And I'm trying to think where I was going with this, but when you think about video vixen, it's like, oh, this is the perception that I have about these type of women. And so when men see them, it's like, oh, I want to be with a video vixen. So therefore, my mindset that this is what beauty is.
Right.
I want to be with her. And anybody who's not that, no, thank you. But I don't think that's where I was going.
No, I don't think so either.
But it was just, I had to explain what a video vixen
I know, yeah. So you're dating yourself.
I'm dating myself.
I'm dating myself too.
I think you are, but no.
But
a
lot of it.
Cultural thing.
But as you were talking about that, I also went back to the idea of how black people have been portrayed in the media, and even the stereotypes that persist, especially in the U.S. And I can tell you, as a Caribbean person coming to the U.S., I definitely had an image of black Americans, right? And where did that come from, right? A lot of that came from the media and the way that the black Americans were represented in the media, in the mainstream media. And now, that I live in America, and especially I think post the George Floyd event, a lot of things have been shown to be not true, right? So is it then, and again, and I also have been accused of being very much pro-women. I would never say I'm a feminist, but definitely I'm always pro-women. But I think a lot of times, again, women, especially black women, take the brunt of, bear the brunt of the burden as far as issues in the black family. So actually, you should not be surprised at what Mrs. Ali or Miss Ali said. It should be something that is actually known, but just not spoken out loud.
Now I remember where I was going with the video vixen idea, that her image is not only influence men, but it also influence women. as well. And, you know, as far as for men, this is who I want to be with.
Right.
With women, this is what I need to be.
Right.
Right. And it's not just for Black women, all women.
Right. Right.
You know, when you look at trends of beauty, right? And if it's going towards the video vixen, not only Black women are doing it,
Yeah.
you'll find white women are doing it. You'll find Latinx women doing it.
And that brings me to the point of, so there are other comments as well about Black women, and even, you know, that whole self-loathing concept of why we do what we do, right? So this fear that's emanating from us that causes us to disrespect our men because we're afraid that they will disrespect us or leave us first. So there's a vicious cycle, right? But within that, there's this whole idea too of, and we spoke about the hair thing, about the weaves that you know, Black women wear, the eyelashes, the makeup, the nails, whatever we have. And I guess also relating to the video vixen. But let me just say that all women, regardless of race and ethnic background, use those things. I just want to put that in there.
Definitely true. Definitely true. And so I think, like what we said at the beginning, that some of the issues that are being pointed out,
Yeah.
it seems as this is a big problem in the Black community.
Right.
No, this is a problem in all communities.
All communities.
I'm sure they all can relate. The same way we have certain, as I mentioned, different media outlet that influence Black families, they influence other families
They do.
as well.
They do.
You
and,
know?
and for a long time, American culture was considered mainstream culture for many countries all over the world,
Right.
right? And now, of course, with the internet and, you know, this whole worldwide getting together of all these different cultures, we're now like one global community. Then, you know, everyone is, you know, and social media, of course, has given everyone a voice.
Definitely. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here as Black women who want better, want different? What do you do? What do you do, Ayana? You know, I'm sure you want better. What are you doing to, I guess, better yourself? You know, because we all should grow. So I'm not saying there's something wrong with you, but we should always be, every person should be in the process of, how can I be a better me today than I was yesterday? What are you doing?
So I think that's a great question. And for me, as a Black woman who is also a Black professional and a single mom, I take my role very seriously, first as a woman of God, right? To make sure that whatever I'm doing is bringing glory to God's name. And then the second thing is always striving for betterment. You know, this podcast that Candy and I envisioned really was meant to uplift you, you know, remind you as a Black woman that you're beautiful, that you're powerful, that God has a plan for you. I think as women, we should never give up on our dreams, always keep striving, always trying to learn. With that, I said, I do have a 17-year-old daughter who every day I tell her that she's beautiful, right? Because I also want her to understand that whether she wears her hair with or without a weave, I'd prefer without, but if she chooses to do so, that's fine as well, that she's still beautiful. And again, that's not a story that Black women hear every day, right? Instead, we hear stories about how we could improve, how we need to do better, how we're not good enough. So there's a difference between striving for improvement and being not good enough.
Being not good enough. And I think that's something that many women, just in general,
Women.
especially Black women,
Yeah.
we deal with that.
Yes.
Not being enough as a woman,
Yep.
and not being enough as a person.
Yeah.
You know, because we have that double, I guess, I don't want to say, we have two things working against us. Our gender and then our race, you know, that we are Black women.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, being enough.
But can we just reword that though in terms of, and let's just be women, you know, because I think, again, society tries to box us in and say, you're Black, you're a woman, or you're a woman, you're Black. You can only do so much.
I don't know. I think I embrace being a Black woman.
I know.
And so therefore, my struggle as a Black woman is going to be different from someone who's not a Black woman.
I know, but at the same time, the way society tells us it, they tell us those things from a negative perspective, not from a positive perspective. It's not like you're Black and beautiful, right? So that's why we have our Triple B podcast, right?
Right.
They say you're Black and you're a woman. Double whammy.
I think it depends on who's saying it, right?
Right.
I don't really hear too much negative about it, right? You know, about that double standard, if you would know, or double negative, whatever. I only see it as more so that, women have their issues. Black people have their issues. You as an individual, you're unique because you can pull from both, right? You can pull from both. There's some things that, a Black man won't understand. There's certain things a white woman won't understand.
Right.
Because there's the way this country is set up.
Right.
There are struggles. So it's more so as an acknowledgement, right? Because we also know that as Black women, we are now climbing to be the most educated person in America.
And that's just testament to the fact that Black women are always trying to improve.
Correct.
Trying to do better. But for me, the Black woman comment comes from this idea, and I remember years ago reading this article that looked at research and studying the most desirable races by gender. I don't know if you're familiar with that study. And at the close up to the top were Black men, interestingly.
For males.
And I think white women, but the desirables for women. I guess who was at the bottom?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's go in order.
But it was
men. I think the first was white men, then Black men,
right?
Then probably Latino,
right?
And then you have your Asians.
So the Asian and Asian men and Black women were at the bottom.
No, so I'm going in order in male. So the Asian men were the bottom for male, and just as women, the who was most desirable? White women. And after white women, then you have your Latin, or then your Asian, and then you had Black men. Granted, I'm just simplifying the different races, But yeah, at the bottom of each group, one for women, Black women, and at the bottom of men was Asian men. And then there was a thought like, Black women and Asian men need to get together.
I didn't know that thought, though. I didn't hear that one.
I heard that thought. Like, yeah, Black women, you need to be open to dating Asian men. It's like, what? So I did hear that, you know, as far as research that's being said. But however, when I read or when I converse or with other women who travel internationally, there's certain parts of the world that Black women are mostly desired.
Oh, yeah. So it's just not necessarily in this part of the world, but in other parts of the world, yes.
Right.
Yes, but remember, we live here, though. So the images that we see, the messages that we get, consciously or subconsciously, they're telling us things about ourselves.
And I think it depends also, research. Who are they asking these questions?
Exactly. Exactly. And what would happen if they did that same study today? Like, were the methods even employed for those studies?
Correct.
How ethical were they, etc.? So that'd be interesting. Candy, we need to do a study.
Because then you got to put in Africans, because there are so many different cultures.
That's right.
That are influencing the world.
Right. And then the whole idea of race, right? They say now race is a construct.
Right.
This is the group, your ethnicity or ethnic group, whatever.
Yeah.
So many different things that would have to be taken into consideration for a study like that today.
Right. Definitely.
And so we started with the gender war.
Right, with the gender war.
Right, or battle.
I know. We're going to go back. But yeah, the gender war, gender battle. So even in that context, about beauty, the concept of beauty, there's that gender war. And so then Black men are like, listen, I am desirable.
Yeah.
You are lucky to be with me. There's some groups that have said that,
that's
right?
True.
There's certain
That's true.
Those individuals who... let me just say who are great followers of the late Kevin Samuel, who may say something like that, I'm a Black man. Of course you want to be with me. I have no problem of pulling anyone, right? You know, so I have my pickings,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so, and black women are like, what? We want to be with you, but not with that type of mentality.
Yeah.
You know, you as a, you know, so therefore that's where that war, that battle that is happening, you know, where one person is uplifting themselves and saying that it's a privilege for you to be with me.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, that is perpetuated by studies like what we just spoke about that happened way back when.
Right. And then also with studies that show that black women are more educated, are starting to be becoming high income earners. And so black women are saying, actually, it's a privilege for you to be with me. You know, I make the money. You know what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
What do you have?
But let's go back to the original when God created Adam and Eve, right? So in the Garden of Eden, you know, Adam was there first, right? We get that. And God created Eve, right, to be his companion because, you know, Adam was noticing what was happening around him.
That's what they say.
Right. And then Adam, when he saw Eve, I remember one preacher saying the literal translation was something like, wow, what was that? You know, when he saw Eve, and he wanted to, of course, get married right away. And
I think they were already married.
but the point is,
Oh, he wanted to procreate.
yes, he wanted to consummate.
Procreate.
That's
right
right.
away.
That's right. That's right. But the point is, you know, it's like he knew he was just so excited. And I think for the men, you know, just having that excitement for the woman, right? And I know that's another discussion we're going to have because Kenny and I have that discussion, right? With the man and that attraction and the role of the man. And I think that for black men, you know, that's the expectation I would have of black men, that they desire black women.
Well, you know, the Bible didn't say Adam was black or Eve was black. It was just a man who loved a woman.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
That's right.
So,
and that's the model we want to follow.
so she came from, she came from my bone, from my rib.
That's
you know?
right.
And so he saw value in her.
That's
and
right.
So forth.
That's right.
I mean, people love who they love. They choose who they want to choose. The only problem that I have is when you put down a certain group or say this group is wrong, this group is bad, you know, versus, you know, you can say this is what you like, and that you're open to anyone who presents certain characteristics, you know. I think we need to leave behind all of these physical attributes because physical body parts and what we look like will always change. It is going to change. Our characters, what could remain consistent. And so if we rely on those things are consistent, that's internal. We don't have to focus on what's the external. But I think nowadays we are focused too much on the external, rather it be physique, education, or not education, but status. You know, people are focused on those type of things, but those things can fail. Literally fall and fail. But you know, someone's character and someone's heart is what's internal, what's inside will remain the same, and how they will treat you.
Yeah.
And so with growth also, what I'm doing every day is trying to be the better person, the next best person or version of myself that I can. Yes, of course, having a relationship with God, but also just looking at, all right, what are some issues or thoughts that I've had that can help me grow? What are some things, repetitive behaviors that I don't like, that I want to see change, right? And so, in listening to or hearing different thoughts, like I mentioned earlier, I like to listen to, or I used to like to listen to a lot of April Mason, who is a femininity coach. You know, just teaching women how to live in their femininity, right? You know, I think that was taught maybe many generations ago. But, you know, with modern society, let's say if you're raised in the 90s or 80s and 90s, you may not have heard that all the time. Or even in the early 2000s, like, no, you got to hold your own as a woman. You have to be independent. granted, no matter what you saw at home, even if your mom was very feminine, but you're like, what are you doing? I would never stand for that, as far as what you saw your mom did. And now, as I get older, I'm like, oh, I realize what she was doing, And so you tend to now, or I tend to now accept that approach and, got to hear it from somebody else. Even though I saw my mom do it, I didn't appreciate it. But when I hear someone else talk about, just as a woman, operating from your femininity versus being masculine, saying you can do all, there's a balance that you can play,
You can, and we cannot, as a woman, assume the role of a man.
Right. Depending on how you define the role of a man.
Right. Well, you can't procreate by yourself. So I'm just starting with the basic of procreation.
Okay.
You still need the man.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
So yeah, but that's a topic for another day.
So we, this was great. This was cool. I know we were kind of all over the place, but we wanted to talk about just the gender, the difference in gender, the gender so-called war/battle, and how we perceive it in our thoughts about, the different perceptions that are out there about Black women.
Right. And let me just say, I'm not at war with the Black man. I am not. And in spite of all the different experiences that I've had, both positive and negative, as far as relationships with Black men, I'm not at war. If there's a war that's coming and you're a warrior and you're a male and you're coming to me because you're taking a defensive stance because you're assuming I'm at war, then that's not me.
I hear you. I mean, I'm not at war. I'm in school. I'm not at war.
She got jokes.
I am in school because I'm here to learn more and to understand.
That's right.
Learn more about myself and others, and just to understand. I think once we have more conversation of understanding, then we can probably learn to live better with one another.
Yep.
All right. That was good.
It was great.
Yeah. So, hey, stay back. We look forward to hearing from me. Okay. All right. We look forward to our next podcast.
Yes, we do. Where we'll probably address something else that we differ upon, but it's really exciting and just really giving us a voice. And if there's something that you want us to talk about as well, definitely let us know.
Yeah. Let us know. All right. With that being said, we are Black, beautiful, and brave. And so we say Triple B
out.
And there you have it, Queens. Another empowering episode of Triple B in the books.
Remember, the revolution doesn't stop when the episode ends. Keep spreading that Black, beautiful, and brave energy wherever you go.
Stay connected with us on social media. And don't forget to share this podcast with your fellow queens who need a dose of empowerment.
Until next time, keep shining, keep slaying, and keep being unapologetically you.
That's right. Stay fierce, stay fabulous, and remember, your voice is your power. Use it to change the world.
Peace, love, and empowerment, queens. Catch you on the flip side.